How do you create something that's different than everyone else? You do it differently than everyone else. Here at Copeland Creative, we specialize in telling captivating stories of wild people, wild things, and wild places. We don't just capture the story, we immerse ourselves in it. We are a diverse, multi-talented media house based in North Georgia, and if you have a story that needs told, we want to help you tell it.
The Redneck Tech Podcast is brought to you by Mike's Archery. Visit mikesarchery.com and use the code REDNECK10 for 10% off anything in their online store. All right, welcome back to the Redneck Tech Podcast. This is episode 196, and today we are going to be talking about photography, taking a little bit of a detour from our usual talk of videography and video editing and other things in that space, and talking more specifically about photography. Isn't that right, Clay?
You would be correct, sir.
What exactly are we talking about with photography today?
Our good friend, Forrest Wilson, who's come to the class multiple times, asked us if we could talk about, let me read it specifically, how to take different types of in-field photos, product, lifestyle, branding, etc. Basically, what types of framing, focus points, and variety of shots. He said this could be a good podcast topic, so hopefully we are going to make it a good podcast topic.
We have a guest in studio today. You can't see her yet, but she's sitting. You might not. She's a little bit better behaved than the guests that I bring sometimes. But her name is Ruby. She is Clay's dog. And right now she's sitting very nicely behind Clay.
In front of the fan because she's hot.
In front of the fan. Yeah, that's the only thing we haven't been able to figure out about this studio up here. Well, I mean, there's a couple things, but it gets hot up here. Right now it's not bad.
We have two AC vents and no AC.
Yeah, the AC does not come up here. For whatever reason, it just does not. So if you see a fan behind Clay, which you can't in this shot, but if you lean toward the camera, Clay, there it is. There's the fan. And you can see it now. So that's what the fan is.
Because our podcast be fire, and we got to cool it off.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Also, it gets really hot up here.
Yes.
It's actually not terrible right now, but it's only 12:30. I think the temperature outside in Dahlonega, Georgia at this current moment is 81 degrees, which I personally find to be too hot. I think that's ridiculous. I think once it gets past 75 degrees, it's entirely too hot. But that's me. I know a lot of people don't even like to go outside until it is 75 degrees, specifically people from like Florida and Louisiana. Like they love 75-degree weather.
Yeah, 60.
Arizona, 75 degrees.
They got jackets on.
Yeah, I don't get it. Oh, there you go. We saw a little bit of a tail.
There you go.
Ruby.
More importantly, you won't hear her, and that's what matters.
Yeah, that's true. She's uninterested. All right, well, I am going to hand it over to Clay to start the topic. Since he took notes, I did not because I was preparing the last podcast to be distributed to you guys. Which at this point would have been last week, but in real time, it was this morning.
I guess this is like the first time that I would say that the cameras are helpful because I'm going to kind of go through my notes and Instagram to kind of like help me. It's hard to talk about taking photos and stuff when you're not either actively taking photos or looking at a photo. Like a lot of my photos, obviously, because I took them, I can look at it and tell you what I took it with.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, I don't know if I do that, can you see my screen?
No.
It's out of focus.
And blown out.
Oh, well, that's trash. All right, never mind then. It is what it is.
So you can go view the photos at Clay's Instagram at Clay Currington and give him a like, give him a follow, run him up.
Yep.
We're going to make him an influencer one of these days.
Yeah. I think probably the easiest way is to like go through, because I would say The way I did my notes was kind of like by client, how we've taken photos for them before, because like how we've taken photos for Rambo is different than how we would take photos for Spy Point, which is different than how we took photos for that Black Rifle clothing shoot that they gave us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I did my notes, is like, this is how we usually shoot Rambo photos. This is how we did the Black Rifle shoot. This is how we do kill photos. This is how we do Spy Point stuff. So that's kind of how I was going to.
So is it talking about how to take, are we talking about how to take pictures or how to like get different types of pictures?
I think Forrest is wanting like different insights to like the different situations, because obviously like different types of photos take different focus modes, different framing, things like that.
Yeah,
So.
I guess we can also add in there, we could talk about Bergara, because theirs are a different vibe than a lot of those.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about sports, because we've taken some stuff of softball and baseball, and you do some photography for your wife's volleyball team.
I do.
And I have done some photography for my girlfriend's brother's dive meets.
You have.
And so there are different considerations that you have to have there, and different things you're looking for all of that. We could probably also talk about trophy photos a little bit.
Yeah, I have those.
And like how to not have them look like the standard grip and grin every time.
Yeah.
Is our time lapses like, does that fall
No,
in photography?
I think that's its own thing, because like none of these photos are we taking with a 30-second shutter.
You talk about light painting,
I think that's a whole other thing too.
but it's not enough. Like, you can do a whole podcast on light
No, but
painting.
you could
That's
do-
why I
but
would
you
put it
could
lump it
do-
into here. You know,
But you could do it with time lapses because they're long exposures.
that's true. Product photography.
I
Is that in there?
kind of had that in with like Spy Point, because that's what a lot of the Spy Point ones we did were like.
Because Black Rifle, I've done a decent amount of product photography
Right.
in the few trips that I did. So, okay. Well,
Would you like me to continue?
yeah. Once you're done yawning,
Oh,
he's
sorry.
just so excited. Do you want a drink of my Celsius?
I can't. I gotta drive later. So I guess
That's one thing. That's Clay's favorite joke. You know, like every at some point, every dad has like the favorite joke that he's used ad nauseum, and that his kids hate, because every time he has an interaction, he'll slide that joke in there. That's gonna be Clay's.
it is mine.
It is. It already is his. But like, whenever you have children, if you know you do, of course, I don't want to make you do anything you don't want to do, but he's gonna make that joke ad nauseum, and his kids are gonna be like,
Dad, shut up.
"It's not even funny, Dad."
It's so embarrassing.
He'll say that to anything. Like, you'd be like, "Hey, Clay, do you want a Kit Kat bar?" And he'd be like, "No, I gotta drive later." Hey, Clay, do you want, like, are you thirsty?
No.
You want some water? Nah, I gotta drive later. Just every time. And it's funny because I don't know how many of you guys know this. Clay does not drink alcohol at all. Never has. Allegedly never will.
I had the one sip of that non-alcoholic.
What? But see,
and it was trash. Actually, I did make a bet with Taylor that if her team qualified for nationals, I had to take a shot with her.
Did you specify of what type?
I just said a shot
Oh,
because I wasn't going to pay for like a whole beer and then take a sip and then not like it. So I was like, at least a shot. It's like just one.
Rumple Mints.
Yeah.
That's what you need. You don't know what that is.
No.
But there's people
If you're
will.
if you're suggesting I'm probably going to hate myself.
There's some
after.
horrific, but you're gonna hate all of them, so you might as well just do the worst of them
Oh
all.
yeah, I mean, if you're not going to like it, you might as well just do the one that borderline kills you. It's fine.
It's not gonna kill you. Just do a little. I mean, I'll talk to Taylor about it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's what I need.
But that's why it's funny, because Clay actually is the DD all the time. He's the permanent DD. I told him he can rid himself of that burden, but He doesn't want to.
It is what at this point it's kind of like a game. Like how long can I keep going with the game?
I know it is a game now, and Clay may be one of the more stubborn people. We have an office full of probably the most stubborn people. Like
Other than Joe.
Joe's the only one who's not stubborn.
Joe's like, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea, so I'm fine with it.
He's like, yeah,
Whatever.
As long as I don't look like a jabroni.
Right.
That's his favorite term.
Yeah.
We were supposed to go up to Ohio this week for a shoot, but it got canceled for the reason that the product we were supposed to shoot was not ready to be shot yet, which is surprisingly not uncommon. We've definitely gotten products that are just like shells of the product. Like they don't function and you got to use them, which like for photography, you can kind of get away with it. With video, it's much harder. Like if somebody's got to go like do something with it and it's like just a shell. But for whatever reason, it seems like people are very optimistic with like the timelines of manufacturing and development and stuff. And so they'll like schedule a shoot to go do this thing. And then we'll get like a week and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's not ready. It's still like, we don't even have one of them yet. Or we have one. Like we've went on shoots where there's one of them ever in existence. And it's the one we have in our hands. And you're like, I really hope we don't break this because there's not another one.
Well, most of the time they're just shells, so there's nothing to break.
Yeah, or it's like there's maybe a couple quirks in there that they're still working out.
Like, hey, the only issue with this one is you can't turn it on. After that, you're good. You just can't turn it on.
The only issue is it doesn't work. It looks exactly like how it's supposed to look, but it doesn't work.
We've done stuff for a couple of trail camera companies, and they've sent us stuff where like you go to put the SD card in, and it just falls out because there's like no retainer for the SD card.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's where was I going with this? What was I saying?
You probably were wanting me to start with Rambo stuff.
No.
Probably, yeah.
No, that's what you want me. That's what you're wanting to start with. No, I was going somewhere with this. Photography. I don't know. It's going to come to me as soon as you start talking, but go ahead.
Okay, I guess we'll start with Rambo stuff. I guess a lot of this going in is you have to figure out, obviously, your subject. So, like in this example, it's a Rambo. And the first thing I think of, if you don't know what Rambo is, they're electric hunting bikes.
Not the popular film character Rambo,
correct.
Played by Sylvester Stallone.
Correct.
Although I think there is some, like I think that character was part of why they named the bikes Rambo.
Gotcha.
Maybe.
The first thing I think of is probably like obviously camera settings, and I don't want to dive too far into camera settings like your ISO has to be this, your shutter has to be this, your aperture has to be this, because obviously your light is dependent on it. But
it depends on your light.
Correct. But did I say it the opposite?
Yeah, you said your light is dependent on it.
Oh. The first thing I would make certain is correct is my shutter speed, because they are faster moving objects, and most of the time you are following the object with your camera as it goes by you, so that higher shutter speed's obviously going to help you freeze the action or the motion of the bike. Now that's obviously hard to do. Like if a bike is going by you at 25 miles an hour, like you're not going most of the time. It may be difficult to like freeze the spokes and all that stuff like perfectly in focus and sharp, but I mean, you don't want to be shooting at like 1/100th of a second and it just like everything be blurry. So like that would be the first thing, is when you're shooting something like that, you make sure your shutter speed's high enough. I tried to go like somewhere around 1,000 because it still let me have a lower shutter speed, because it wasn't a super high shutter, but it wasn't a super low shutter where like nothing was frozen.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to shoot a lot of them horizontally, because one, we got asked for a lot of website and trade show banner images. Those are 75% of the time horizontal. And two, if you look at a bike sits side to side. It's not like an up and down type of like build, I guess. And the bike is moving side to side through the horizon, like going by you. So being horizontal, you're going to have more space to keep that bike in the frame versus trying to fit a horizontal object into a vertical frame. Now, obviously, when you're getting tight details of the bike, or like especially if the bike was driving directly at me, like if I was sitting in the middle of a dirt road and the bike was coming right at me or going right away from me, I would go vertically because you feel the frame more. That's one tip. Is a lot of the time it's easier to fill the frame vertically. So if you're running out of lens, you can move the camera vertically and fill the frame more. But after that, a lot of it is just like again, the bike is moving, so keeping it in a third of the frame to where you have space on the other side to where it visually tells your brain like, okay, the bike is moving this way, it's going in this direction, and it leaves room for the company on the other 2/3 of the frame to add text, logos, graphics, whatever it is. So the big thing I really tried to focus on with Rambo was horizontal, high shutter, keep it in one side of the frame so that the rest of the frame was empty for graphics and things like that. Then I guess after that, like if you were to choose a certain focus mode, I did one of two things. I shoot on Sony. I have the A7 III. One of my focus modes is zone, so it takes like an entire third of the frame. I can make that left, middle, or right, and it just focuses on the prominent object in that frame. So like if the bike was moving left to right, I would choose the left zone, the left third of the frame, make sure the bike stayed in that, and I would just rip the shutter button. And whatever I got is kind of what I got. I can take like 28 or 29 frames a second, something like that.
No.
Yeah.
No way. Because that's a video frame, right? And I don't think it was until recently that cameras were like able to produce a video frame rate. Because I remember some camera came out and it had like 30 frames per second, and people were just ripping the photo button and then making little videos out of it. I don't think it's 29. I feel like it would be like 15, 18.
I can look it up when Ryder starts talking, because now I'm curious. But I can take a lot of frames a second because really my camera's not that old. And like one out of every 7 or 8 is different enough to like produce a different image. Like I'm not gonna deliver 16 of the same image. So I would just rip off photos. If I filled the buffer, let it dump to the card, and just keep letting her eat. And that's really, it's kind of hard to talk about some of these things because we've done them so much that it's kind of like, okay, I know I want to take this and this and this and this, but as far as like my mindset going into it, I'm thinking high shutter speed, horizontal, as long as the bike isn't coming directly at me or directly away from me. If they are, I'm going vertical. I'm either doing zone focus or tracking focus, to where you pick an object, you keep the shutter or your back button focus held down, it tracks that subject all the way through the frame. I do one of those two things and just start ripping photos. That's all I got in my notes for that one.
I think with Rambo, for me, I go between two different approaches. The first approach is like what Clay was talking about, where you've got a really high shutter speed, which is useful when you have good light, because you have to have good light to use a really high shutter speed. And trying to freeze that motion. On the other end of the coin, a lot of times when I'm taking photos for like a bike, right, a Rambo bike, I'm thinking about, okay, well, why do people like these bikes? Like, what's the reason why people would want to buy this bike? Well, the large reason is because it allows you to get further faster, right? It's an easier way of travel. You can go a further distance with less exertion than it would take you to hike that distance. under most circumstances, right? If there's decent terrain, good roads, good trails, like you can take a bike and it's going to get you somewhere faster. And so I go, how do I translate that, into a still image? And the best way to translate that into a still image is by trying to introduce some motion blur, purposeful
Which
motion blur.
You are good at. I have never been able to nail it. I've tried, and I can't nail it. So usually I'm like, hey, Ryer, I want to do a motion blur of this. Will you take one so we have one? And he's like, yeah, sure.
I didn't know that you weren't good at it. I just thought you just wanted me to do it. Oh, interesting. I do like a motion blur. I'll probably say motion blur like 5 different times in these. But I mean, a lot of that is because we shoot things that are moving. And so sometimes I feel like an image, there's something cool about an image that's been completely frozen in time. But I also think that it lacks sometimes some energy that some amount of motion blur can introduce to the image. So when you have that motion blur in a photo of a bike, you're basically implying this speed and quickness visually. And so you're able to communicate that with the viewer in a really subconscious way. Like you see motion blur, you just assume like something is moving fast. And so when I'm doing those motion blur shots, you're usually looking at needing to have a lens with some zoom capabilities because it's a lot easier to do a motion blur shot on like 105 millimeters on the 24-105 or at 150 millimeters on a 70-200 or something, just because it compresses that background a little bit and makes the movement that you're going to do with your lens more exaggerated, if that makes sense. And then you're looking at shutter speeds that are well below, depending on the speed of the bike and how fast you're going to be moving with it, you're looking at shutter speeds below 1/60th, 1/30th, 1/15th. I mean, those are kind of the speeds you're looking for. And essentially what I'll do is the physical arrangement between me and the bike that is most conducive to motion blur is when it is moving almost perfectly perpendicular to me. So what I'll do is say there's a road running and just imagine it's running to your left, to your right. So I'm going to position myself basically facing that road so that I am at a 90-degree angle to that road. And I'm going to have the bike come through that road. And I'm going to do the same thing like Clay said. I'm going to have my shutter speed set, not my shutter speed, my drive set to basically high so that it's just cranking photos, right? As long as I hold down that shutter button, it's going to keep taking photos. And I'm going to start with my camera before the bike gets perfectly perpendicular to me. So I'm going to find the bike. I'm going to have them roll past me. So if they're going left to right, I'm going to find the bike on my left, grab focus, and then start swinging through with the bike to that point that's perfectly perpendicular to me, and then continue swinging through, continuing to follow through. And the reason I do that is because 99% of those shots are going to be trash. You're essentially playing a numbers game with motion blur, in which during the perfect, not the perfect, but the ideal motion blur is where the subject is crisp, but the background has that motion blur, or the foreground has that motion blur. And in order for that to happen, your camera and the subject have to be moving in perfect sync with each other for the entirety of the exposure length. So if your exposure is 1/60th of a second, you have to have that 1/60th of a second that your camera and the speed and movement of your subject, in this case the bike, are perfectly synced up. And that's super difficult to do. So when you crank all those photos out, 99% of them are going to be trash because the bike was moving a little faster than your lens was swinging at that particular 1/30th of a second or 1/15th of a second, or you were swinging faster than the bike, or there was a bump in the road so the bike went up but your camera didn't go up, or maybe you just kind of shook a little bit and the camera moved up and down and not perfectly left or right, which is going to skew that motion blur and make it so that your subject is not perfectly crisp. So basically you just have to take a bunch of them and eventually one of them will work out. And a lot of times when we're doing this, like I'm saying, hey, just ride this road back and forth until I tell you to stop. Like you just keep going back and forth, try to hold a steady speed, and I'm just going to keep taking pictures until I tell you to stop. And eventually, they go one pass, you go through, and then you go and you look at the photos and you try to find one, and you go, okay, nope, 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 and maybe that whole pass there wasn't one that you liked. So then they come back through, you do it again, look through your photos. Maybe there wasn't one there, so they come back through, do it again. You look at your photos, boom, there it is. You finally got one where everything evened out. And I mean, that's kind of the process with most motion blur pictures. Like it's just kind of a guessing game, You have to, your exact shutter speed is going to depend on the lens you're running, the focal length you're running, how close, how far you are from your subject, the lighting, and your shutter speed. All those things you have to figure out in the moment. And so sometimes, you try with one shutter speed, it's not quite blurry enough. You try with another one, it's too blurry, you can't quite make a match, so then you have to come back to the middle. It's all a guessing game, but eventually, with enough patience, one usually works out. And so usually when we go do a Rambo shoot or we're shooting something with a lot of movement, I try to get some kind of motion blur to really highlight the movement of that subject. And I would say that's probably, I guess that would be what I could add to the Rambo discussion. The only other thing that I could add to the Rambo discussion is I do a lot of low angle shots, because that way you can get like some foreground, but still be able to see the entirety of the bike. Laying the camera on the road as the bike comes towards you, or on the grass as the bike comes past you, or something like that.
Right. A lot of what my notes are like the basic baseline things that I would do, and then after that I would try to get creative.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what you talked about, the creativity side. I kind of talked about like my just baseline, what I would do, but that's usually what happens is I talk about the generic things, and then you.
Hey, somebody's got to do it.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Accept my responsibility.
I know my role. I know my role.
All right, did we get the Rambo stuff covered, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, who's next?
I had the BRCC clothing shoot just because, we usually don't do a lot of, I don't want to say portraits.
Yeah.
But, photos that aren't a product specific, which even though this was product specific, it wasn't like a in-hand product. It was a wearable product.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about that because it is a little different than shooting like a trail camera or a gun or a bow or something like that.
Well, I'll lump in the shoot that I did in Oklahoma because it was basically the same.
Yeah.
It was still products.
That was the motocross one, right?
Yeah, I did a lot of apparel shooting
that's
on that
that's what this was. Black Rifle came out with a line of bamboo hooded long sleeve shirts and chubby type short type things. And we did a lot here.
A couple hats, I think there was.
Hats, and we did fly fishing, shooting guns. Joe and I went fishing and did photos. I think that was it.
We did a fire scene.
Campfire, yeah.
We did an archery scene.
Oh yeah, we did do an archery scene, that's right. And what I tried to focus on a lot with that shoot was shooting a lot of vertical because people are vertical, people stand up and down, and you fill the frame, and it just looks better when your frame matches the direction that your subject is. The Rambo shoots usually look better horizontal. Taking photos of people usually looks better vertical when it's just people. And it wasn't a lot of like tights of the Black Rifle logo. A lot of it was show people what this looks like when people are wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, it was a lot of wide and a lot of mediums. There weren't a lot of tights. Shot a lot of eye autofocus because obviously we were taking pictures of people wearing the shirts and the shorts. So I wanted the person to be in focus. So I turned on my eye autofocus. And a lot of that was just, taking a lot of photos of the people doing the things that they were doing. Like we did a scene where Ryer, Joe, and I shot a bunch of pistols at a steel target, and it was kind of, all right, I'm going to stand here. Y'all just start ripping off rounds, and I'm going to just take photos. Joe and I went fishing, and I think we only caught like 2 fish, so there wasn't a lot of like fishing prop stuff to do. But a lot of the best ones that came out, and they actually ended up using a lot of the fishing ones, was Joe and I dropped each other off on an island, and the other person went out and like fished towards that island, and we took the 2 to 600. And there was a lot of like face-on casting, looking for fish. I hooked a stump so we could I purposefully hooked a stump so that
I was going to say, did you do that on purpose?
So that we could
just, what is just happy accident?
Right, so that we could like set the hook and look like I was fighting a fish. We did something else. We put something heavy in a net and then like put it in the water and then like hooked the lure with treble hooks onto the net so we could like pull like we were netting a fish. We did a bunch of that stuff, but a lot of it, like we did an archery scene and I was shooting my bow. Caleb took pictures of me shooting my bow, and his was kind of the same thing. Like, hey, you just rip off a bunch of arrows, go pull your arrows, and I'll follow you around, like taking photos waist up of you like at full draw, or taking arrows out of the quiver, or like looking through your binos or things like that. And those are kind of the ones where you have to be creative because like you're not necessarily taking photos of the actual act that the person is doing. You're taking photos of what the person is wearing doing the act. So we had to come up with engaging like things for the people wearing the clothes to do so that the photos weren't boring. Because if we're like, hey, just go stand in this field and take photos, it's like, it's boring. So it's like, okay, when would we wear these clothes? Well, first thing I thought of was fishing. It was a lightweight long sleeve with a hood. I would wear those fishing all the time, so let's do a fishing scene. And honestly, Caleb has 100 acres that we shoot a lot of product stuff on. So we were like, let's just go shoot guns and shoot bows, mess around for a little bit, and we'll switch off taking pictures.
Yeah.
It's kind of honestly how it went.
Yeah, I think with things like that, especially for me, I'm not a great poser of people.
I'm not good at staging people.
Yeah, I don't really like to do it, and anytime I do it, the photos feel very contrived. They feel very fake, and like I said before, they don't have there's not an energy to them, and I'll probably use that word 50 times, but a photo has some kind of energy to it, a vibe. It tells a story of some kind. And a lot of times, like if I set up a picture and I pose somebody into that picture, the story is, look, I posed somebody to do this thing. Like that's what the picture feels like to me. And so my approach for shooting stuff like that, when it's a product, I want people using the product naturally. And I know, obviously, you'd be like, well, yeah, of course, you're going to, make people use the product, and you're going to, stage them using the product. But some people will stage in a way where it's like, okay, I'm going to put this camera, like this trail camera here, or I'm going to put this thing here, and I want you to, reach in and then freeze and hold that, and then I'm going to take pictures, and I might move your hand here and move this here and that and the other thing. That's really not how I approach things. I usually try to find an action that you would do with that product and then photograph you doing that action. obviously with clothing, it's pretty easy if you can basically do anything you want where where it would be natural for you to wear that clothing. So like Clay was saying, the fishing, the shooting a bow, the shooting guns, the sitting around a campfire, the whatever it may be. You kind of stage the scene and go, okay, this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna shoot your bow, you're gonna shoot a gun, you're gonna go fishing, blah blah blah. But within that, I'm kind of just letting them mostly do what is natural for them to do, and then I'm finding my compositions in that. And if I'm like, hey, can you turn this way and do that facing this way, or pause a little longer at full draw just so I can rip off a couple different pictures or whatever. Like there's a little direction there for that when I might see something specific I want. But a lot of the times that specificity does not come until like I've seen them do it a few times and I've tried a couple different compositions and I go, oh, okay, now I've got an idea.
Or what they're doing is like blocking a logo or blocking the specific product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, with that Black Rifle stuff, and like I went to Oklahoma for 2 or 3 days and shot a bunch of different athletes of theirs in different hats and shirts, and with the RTDs, which are those coffee cans and stuff like that. And my main focus was like, I want to get these guys wearing the product, doing something like that they would be doing. And it was honestly pretty easy because, it was like a motorsports event. And so, you got guys, there was one guy who was Mark Gomez's baller on a jet ski. I see somebody sneaking up here.
It's Sam. He's creeping on us again.
You creeping, Sam? Oh, what's up? Just talking about photos.
Yeah, you might want to listen. I've seen your Instagram.
Damn, Clay. He can't even defend himself because he doesn't have a mic. That's rude. That's rude.
Got him.
Here. You want to say something to Clay? Yeah. Here. Here you go.
My photos are better than Clay's. My photos are better than Clay's. That's all I gotta say.
There we go. Okay. You can't insult a man and not let him defend himself. That's dishonorable, Clay.
Well,
you bring a dishonor on your family.
Well, wouldn't that be the first time I dishonor family?
Won't be the last either.
No, it won't.
So yeah, like Mark Gomez is a baller on a jet ski, and it's like, okay, put on Black Rifle, and he's got Black Rifle on his jet ski, so that makes it easy. But like, put on the Black Rifle, go do cool jet ski stuff. I'll take pictures.
Right.
There was you got like Caleb Francis is wearing Black Rifle shirts. It's like, okay, just I don't know, go be a goof, and I'll take pictures. Right? Like, I'm not going to make you do anything. Just go hang out
You're not staging.
Just go hang out.
You're not staging him.
Yeah.
He's going to do cool stuff whether you stage him or not.
Yeah.
So it's like.
So go hang out. Like, okay, they want, like, some pictures of you with this RTD. So hold the RTD and then go hang out over here and do whatever, And that, to me, is kind of the key, is trying to find, first of all, you have to have people doing something that's natural for them, Like, if you have me, honestly, like going to shoot a bow, it's not really going to look that natural because I have very basic, limited knowledge on how to shoot a bow. But you have Dudley go shoot a bow, it's going to look very natural.
Right.
Right? So you find people who are naturally good at whatever scene you want them to do, have them do that scene.
High school kids, man.
And then shoot photos of them doing that scene, And I think that, to me, that's kind of my approach. And the other thing was, like, when I'm trying to take pictures of, like, a shirt, again, wide, medium, tight. You go, okay, so I've got this scene. We got a bunch of guys sitting around having morning coffee, right, because it's Black Rifle, and they're sitting around having morning coffee, and they're all wearing Black Rifle shirts, Black Rifle mugs, Black Rifle hats. I'm going to get some, like, wide shots, like really wide shots, right? Wider than really you could even tell what they're wearing. You just know what they're doing. You're like, okay, there's a bunch of guys sitting on a porch having coffee. really wide shot, lots of room for them to be able to use that in a website banner or a print ad or a Instagram graphic or something, right? There's lots of room for them to be able to put text and graphics and whatever else they might want. Then start stair-stepping in, okay? So you've done an extra wide, now you do not as wide. Then you come in and it's like a medium, right? You got the whole group, but the people are all filling the frame. If you got 3 people, all 3 people are filling the frame. Then you go knife off individual people. Okay, I'm going to shoot you, then I shoot this guy, then I shoot this guy. Okay, now that I've got those, now I'm going to move in even closer, and I'm going to just shoot parts of the person, right? Head, a hand with the mug, you know, a face, eyes, whatever. Just the shirt, right? Just where you can see the shirt, and you might be cutting off part of their head or part of their arms or part of their legs, but like you can see the shirt. And then even past that, is there a really small logo? Let's try to get really tight in on that really tiny detail and trying to find the textures. And like some of the shots that I liked were, especially with shirts, because you know you wear a shirt and it wrinkles a certain way and it falls a certain way while you wear it. Well, sometimes the light will hit that and create like a really cool texture. And so you can come in there and take a cool detail shot where you can see, or it's got like a little bit of texture. It's not just a flat logo or a flat graphic. You can see kind of this 3D light effect because of the way that the fabric is folding. And then because you're tight, you've also got, you know, the texture of the shirt. But I mean, a lot of the approach was just like, hey, you're going to wear this hat, you're going to wear this shirt, and you're going to go out there and jump your mini bike. You know, you're going to go out there, you're hanging out with your buds. Okay, cool. I'll take some pictures, you know? And then sometimes it's like, hey, if there's nobody else around, sometimes that's like you joking around with the person to try to get them to open up a little bit and get those like candids of them laughing and smiling and cutting up. Because that's where, you know, a lot of those candids, that's why they work, is because you have that moment where they're not feeling like they're posed.
Right.
You know, you're catching them in a moment of having fun. And because it's a genuine, like they're laughing about this or they're smiling or whatever, it's that kind of spontaneous moment and it is natural. And so that picture has that like natural fun energy. And clients are going to like that because it looks like somebody's having fun in their product, which is essentially what they're trying to get across. You know, like, again, going back to Rambo, why do people buy Rambo bikes? It's because they want to get places faster and do less work, like physical work doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do people buy Black Rifle? Well, one, it's coffee, so it gives you energy, right? That's like your obvious. But two, like Black Rifle is a fun brand, and the people that represent Black Rifle are fun, and they're BA. I wish I could say that word. I hate saying BA. It sounds like I'm a homeschooler. No offense to homeschoolers. But, like, you know, it's hard for me not to say it.
Right.
But, like, they got some really cool guys doing cool stuff, right? So in order to sell that product, you're trying to capture, like, high energy, fun, epicness. You know, the Black Rifle as a brand is pretty goofy.
BA-ness.
Yeah, BA-ness.
But to your point.
So you want to put them in situations where they can be that.
Well, yeah, but to your point, like, it's easier to take cool photos if the thing that person is doing is cool.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. Like,
it's really hard to take a cool photo of clay.
Yeah, because I don't ever do anything cool. I'm just boring. I golf and I fish, and that's about it. I go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it is what it is. I wear the same shirts every 3 weeks. Like,
It's true, he's got the rotation.
It is what it is. But, like, you got a dude jumping a dirt bike doing backflips. Like, I think that's one of my favorite photos you've ever taken. Like, it's hard to make that not look cool. Or a dude doing backflips on a jet ski. Hard to not make that look cool. Or whatever. Wasn't someone riding like a mini bike or something, like whipping it around?
Oh yeah, they had a mini bike race.
Yeah, like it's hard
or pit, they call them pit bikes.
Yeah,
but yeah,
like it's hard not to make that look cool because it's cool. Like, so that's where, like,
which is why brands like Red Bull and Monster and Black Rifle sponsor all those guys, because their brand image and the message they want to get across to their consumers is like, if you consume this product, you will be able to do cool things. You will have fun. You will be involved in epic adventures, right? So they go and find all these guys that are cool, fun, do epic stuff, put a product in their hand, and go take pictures of it.
right.
And that subconsciously conveys to the viewer of that photo, like, oh, if I go drink a Red Bull, like, it's going to give me wings. Like, it's going to make me feel like I'm jumping out of a plane.
Like a bow. Like if you look through an Instagram of bow company A, and there was not a single dead animal on that entire page, and you go to company B, and there was bows and dead animals everywhere, which bow are you wanting to buy? It's the same thing. It's like, what does this photo make our customer feel, or why does this photo make our customer want to be associated with us?
Yeah, you can't just go and you can just go take pictures of stuff. You can do it. But in order to really take successful pictures, you have to go, what does this picture convey? And is the message that this photo is telling, is the story that this photo is telling? Because every photo tells a story. Just like every video tells a story, every photo tells a story within one frame. Is the story that this photo is telling aligning with the image of this brand and what this brand wants to convey? Which is why, like, you go to an Instagram page of a brand and all their photos are going to have a certain look, a certain feel. They're going to be of certain subjects because they're consciously trying to project an image, to tell their brand story, to make the consumer think a certain thing about their brand. So you as a photographer, as the person who takes those pictures, have to be cognizant of that. You have to know, well, what's this brand's identity? What are they trying to sell? Like, beyond the product, what is it that they're trying to sell? Because, like I said, Black Rifle is trying to sell coffee. But in order to sell coffee, they're selling a feeling. They're selling an experience. They're selling
An atmosphere.
An atmosphere that product is associated with, right? So, yes, you might go and take, like a bow, you might go and take pictures of the specific components of that bow and what makes it different from the other competitor's bow, or this new technology that makes this bow better, right? And that's just a feature. But also at the same time, you're going to take pictures that show that bow in a photo that tells the story that the brand wants to project onto their audience and hopefully onto potential buyers of that product. If they can convince somebody that this bow will make them feel this, or give them the opportunity to do this thing or have this experience or whatever that may be through a picture, then that person is more likely to buy that bow. And you as a photographer have to be able to know that and then take images that further that brand's goal in that direction.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And I wouldn't disagree because you would just tell me I'm wrong anyways. So, shall we move on to trophy photos / kill photos?
Yeah, who's next?
That's what I had.
Oh, okay. Or we can do,
Because there's
so
something.
we want to do Bergara.
Uh,
Because we've talked about Rambo and Black Rifle, both of which are
yeah,
are more product based. Bergara is kind of both.
I think let's end. Ooh, yawning again. Let's end with kill photos because I honestly think it's going to be the shortest,
Okay.
and it'll keep us on the brand train.
We do Bergara and then we could do sports real quick.
Yeah, I'm gonna lump Spy Point in with Bergara because they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Because there's something I want to stress with like a Spy Point or a Bergara or like a brand that makes a specific product. Like Bergara makes guns. Spy Point makes trail cameras. Tethered makes saddles and saddle hunting equipment. you do not have to see the company. This is the biggest mistake I think like a lot of the people that come to our class have when they're going out and taking photos. Not every photo has to have that company's logo in it.
Yeah.
Because like Spy Point is not going to post a photo with a trail camera in it that's not a Spy Point.
Mm-hmm.
Bergara is not going to post a photo with a gun in it that's not a Bergara.
Mm-hmm.
Tethered is not going to post a photo that has a saddle or climbing sticks or something like that that isn't their saddle or their climbing sticks. So
Right.
obviously for like website images and product imagery, like you want to have logos, you want to have tights.
And a lot of times those logos, they're almost, like you said, redundant in a way. And unless that logo is like a part of the product and like a cool part of the product,
Right.
you don't always necessarily need to see it, right? Because if you're highlighting, if you say you've got a one-page spread on a new gun, like what Bergara will do in their catalog, it's inside of a Bergara catalog. They're not going to waste 2 inches of space on like a very tight close-up of the Bergara logo on the gun necessarily, when they need to show off the gun as a whole, this feature, that feature, the other feature, and then like lifestyle photos of that gun in use that's not just a feature photo.
Right.
You know? And like you want to get them, obviously. Like always get one of those tights. But a lot of it, like I don't find...
That's not where your photo shoot ends.
Yeah, and I don't find a lot of... I don't find that a lot of those tights get used. I mean, every once in a while you'll see that, but, you know, like you said, within the context, it's either going on a social media or it's going on a website or it's going in a catalog. Maybe, like, you know, it's going up on like a trade show booth. But usually, like, there's a graphic. Most companies will use their logo graphic over a photo that has their product in it. You know, they're not going to put their logo graphic on a photo of their logo on something.
Right.
You know, like they use them sometimes, but I generally, and somebody will prove me wrong, will go send me 15,000 close tights that are on Instagram. But generally speaking, I think the large majority of shots on Instagram are conveying an experience more than just like this specific feature or this like logo, you know? Like I feel like I see a lot more wides and probably more mediums on Instagram than even wides or really tights. But that being said, yeah, you don't have to always have the logo in the image.
Right.
And I feel like that's a holdover from the TV days.
Yeah.
Which technically the TV days are still now.
But
like
it's the in your face branding that, and I'm just going to say it, people cannot like it, and I mean we all know I don't care what people think about me. But it's a lot of these old school marketing people that have been in the same place for 15, 20, 30 years, and their style is still the way it was 15, 20 years ago when TV was in its prime, and TV was very, if it wasn't for my Rage Broadhead and my PSC bow and my Realtree camera, I wouldn't have killed this deer. And a lot of these new companies that are starting, like, I wouldn't call Sitka or Matthews a new company, but their style also aligns with the newer companies like UltraView, and Latitude Saddles does a pretty good job. PSE's doing better about it. But, like, I'm posting a photo on my page. I'm obviously not going to post a photo of a Hoyt on PSE Archery.
Yeah.
So I can get away with more, this is our brand out being used in its environment.
Well, I think that the reason...
It's the soft branding.
Yeah, and the reason that works is because, like, in an old TV show, I mean, there's like 5 ways that companies get their name in that TV show. But if you had none of those 5 ways, people wouldn't necessarily know what products were being used by that person. And obviously that's not advantageous to the companies that are sponsoring them, because the reason they're sponsoring them is because they want people to know that this person is using their product. And in order to make sure that the viewers of that TV program know that this is the product that's in the hand of the host, you had to show that to them. Like, you had to put a logo shot in there. Like, you had to have in the episode.
They used to sew on logo patches on their sleeves, bro.
Yeah, like you had to have a logo, something shot in the episode. Usually there would be a billboard section that had the actual company's logo, like this segment brought to you by X company, Y company, Z company, right? We all know that stuff. And so in something where like that piece of media is not owned by and labeled by the company, when it's owned by, you know, just another brand, it was necessary for you to have to show the logo of the companies that sponsored you. And there wasn't really any other way to figure out what company sponsored somebody, right? But now, let's say even if you didn't do that, you know, like say somebody like a YouTube show is sponsored by some companies. Usually the companies they're sponsored by are in the bio.
Right.
Or not the bio, but like the description of the video, right? If you wanted to see, what companies are these sponsored by? Guarantee you go to the
links and description.
Description, twirl that down. There's probably like 15 links of, you know, this sponsor, this sponsor, this sponsor, this sponsor. You know, and I think in the video world, like, you know, you still try to get logo shots and stuff, but like I'm using them sparingly. Right. I use them when it fits.
Yeah.
Because unless there's like, hey, you've got to put this logo in there. A lot of times, like a logo shot just doesn't necessarily fit. It's like very in your face. Oh, here's a logo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that was Ryer and I both went off on a rant, which usually doesn't happen. But I think that was a long way of saying, like, embrace the wide shots. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm going on like a Bergara shoot or a Spy Point shoot, I'm taking, like, if it was up to me and I knew I was only doing photos, obviously this is different because we're usually doing photos and video at the same time. But if Bergara calls, hey, we need you to go photograph this mountain goat hunt, I'm taking a 16-35 and I'm taking a 100-400, or I'm taking a 16-35 and 70-200, because I'm either getting that gun in the environment that it's in, like BC, like I want to show it in rugged places, getting wet, getting scraped on the ground through like rock fields and stuff, strapped on the pack, wide stuff. And then I want to get tights of whoever it is holding the gun going down the mountain, or, you know, different features of the gun, the muzzle brake, the bolt, the fluted barrel, the carbon fiber stock, the integrated Picatinny rail, things like that. Like, that's what I'm getting with the 100-400, and I'm getting all of the other, like, yo, our gun is strong enough and tough enough to go in this environment. I'm getting those with the wide, the 16-35. Like, very rarely are we taking mediums. Now, a lot of times we're taking wides, and social media people that don't know what they're doing put them on social media, and Instagram crops it to a medium. But originally that photo was a wide.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just...
It is what it is.
And, you know, a lot of times, like, you're shooting a wide, and they may like that picture, but they want it in a medium.
Right.
And it's like, okay, they crop it in. It is what it is. But, you know, I think, again, with a brand like Bergara, we're going to go back to the same thing, is knowing what that brand wants. And we know, because of sitting in meetings with their team, like, this is how...
Going through their Instagram page and seeing what else they're posting.
Yeah, like, this is how they want their product to be perceived. This is the story they're trying to tell with that product. And going, okay, how do we demonstrate that? And like you said, with Bergara, they're trying to show a gun that is extremely capable, and one that you can take anywhere you go. If you're going somewhere to hunt, that gun will go with you, and you don't have to worry about it, right? And so you take that gun to BC, and you drag it up a mountain, and it gets wet, and it gets dusty, and it gets snowed on, it gets whatever, and it's still performing, right? And so what pictures are going to show that? Well, a wide shot of this big, huge, epic, mountainscape with just this little tiny person in there. And you just see all these mountains, and as a viewer, like, oh, that's a rugged place, But you don't necessarily see only the gun, right? Like, you might see that the guy is holding a gun.
Yeah, you might not even see the gun at all.
Yeah, but whether or not you know that it's a Bergara, you wouldn't just from that picture unless you really pixel peeped,
yeah,
right?
if Guns and Ammo magazine posted it, you wouldn't know what kind of gun it is.
Yeah, unless you knew that gun and pixel peeped.
Right, but if Bergara posts it, you know it's a Bergara photo because they're not going to obviously post something of a different gun.
Yeah, and that photo is giving you a feeling. It's telling you a story.
It's making you want to go there.
Right. Or, on the flip side, it's been raining and the gun's wet. I'm going to take some really cool tight shots of the barrel with water drops on it, the stock with water drops on it, trying to get some of that stuff. And, with the Bergara stuff, you're basically taking these guns on a trip and capturing them at every step of the trip. And so for us, we're filming it, so I have to be cognizant of, okay, like every once in a while, like I got to break out the picture camera and take some pictures. Mm-hmm. And so for the Bergara trips last year, I started like carrying my mirrorless on a shoulder strap with the Peak Designs clip so I could put it on the outside of my backpack. And that way, when I wanted to just take a few photos, it was kind of clunky sometimes, but like I would hold my big camera, take that off, and I just kind of one-hand it, which isn't not the best strategy. It's hard to get good pictures that way, but you can get them. And just trying to, knock off a few pictures here and there.
And I think fortunately, a lot of the Bergara stuff or the Spy Point stuff we did, when we were on location shooting, it was usually two of us.
Yeah.
So if we ever had the opportunity, like, hey, we don't need to single shoot this, the other person would be doing photos in the background at the same time.
Right.
Like when we were doing boot leather, and Chris was like glassing, or like we were hiking into a spot or whatever, like trying to film around each other, we're just going to fight each other. Mm-hmm. So one person do photos, one person do video, knock both of them out, and then we're not fighting around each other.
Yeah.
Which obviously I know a lot of y'all won't have that option, but if you're doing something like, oh, I'm on this 5-day trip and we've done this one thing 74 times and I've already filmed it 74 of the 74 times, like times 75, just be like, yo, I've got this X amount of times. I don't see us using it more than that. Like, I'm going to take some photos. And they're usually like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think.
And I usually, like, in the Spy Point, like, I keep using them because that's how my notes are. But, like, in the product type, in the field realm, I'd usually try to go either really wide or really tight. Because you can go really wide and still fill the frame with that, with that product. Like, when I say wide, I don't mean, like, just all landscapes. Like, you can still shoot, like, a lot of your, like, 16 to 35s or your 16 millimeter primes have really good close focus. You can still go really wide and get really close and fill the frame with that product. Mm-hmm. So I'm not, when I say wide, I'm not saying, like, literally just a bunch of wide landscape shots. Like, you can still be creative and get super close. And I've done pictures of like a film and follow of like Brian carrying the trail camera in his hand, like swinging by his side, and I'm literally like this far away from him with the 16 to 35 on center focus. And I'm like, whenever that camera gets in the middle of the frame, it'll be in focus, and I'm just ripping off photos. I'm literally just walking behind him vertically like this, just ripping them off.
Yeah.
And one out of every 15 or 20 is in focus, and out of those 15 or 20, there's probably 3 or 4 that are in focus, and that's all you need of that one specific thing, and then you move on. But then you can also do that same exact thing where Brian's walking, and you're at 400 millimeters from 50, 60 yards away, filling the frame and blowing out the background. And so there's multiple ways to do the same thing.
Yeah, and again, I think I always try to think in terms of like wide, medium, tight, right? I want to work either in or out. So I'm going to start tight and work out to a wide, or I'm going to work wide, or I'm going to start wide and work in, and just try to get that variety. And because when you're taking pictures for clients, you think, okay, they want this, that, and the other thing, unless they've been very like there's been a couple times where people have been like, we want this kind of shot because we're going to use it for this thing. Go get it. And okay, perfect. I need to get this shot. But a lot of times they're not that specific. So you're going into it with like, I generally know what they want. I know what they're trying to communicate with their photos, but I don't know, exactly which photo they're going to use for what stuff. And so that's where you go, okay, I'm going to get some big wides. I'm going to get some mediums. I'm going to go get some tights, so that they have these big wides and mediums for, mediums a lot of times are going to be your social medias. Your big wides, a lot of those are website imagery, website banners, trade show banners, big pieces like that. And then your tights, your feature shots, basically, a lot of those are going to be used like website images for talking about different aspects of that product on the product's like sale page. Sometimes they'll be used for like when they release that product in a carousel of images to show off different features. Sometimes you see them on social media, when they want to talk about a new feature or specific feature of their product. But you just never know which ones exactly they're going to want and use. So I try to, you always try to give them a variety so that they have all of the choices so that they can use whichever ones they want. And generally speaking, like if you deliver to them a good variety, they're going to be happy with some of them. Just the same way as like if you're shooting a video, you want a good variety of shots. You want some wides, you want some mediums, you want some tights, you want some of this angle and some of that angle and some in this light and that light and the other light, right? The photo stuff is the same thing. You want to deliver to them a good variety so then they know they can, they out of that they'll have something they like. If you deliver to them a gallery and all of the images look kind of the same, well, you better hope that they like that, how all those images look. Because if that's not what they were looking for and all of them look kind of the same and they're the same field of view and they're the same focal length and they've got the same kind of vibe and the same light and the same, grade and everything like that, if they don't like it, they're going to be like, oh, well, I don't want to hire that guy again because I didn't get really any images I liked out of that. And they might have been great images. It just might not have been the vibe they're looking for. So if you give them variety, more than likely they're going to find something in there they like. And then if they find something they like and they find something they can use, well, that's when you're going to get a call back. Because at the end of the day, they're only going to call you if they feel like the work that you're doing is something that's going to be useful to them. So
they're not going to pay for 1,000 photos they can't use.
Right.
They're not. Like, you could go out for 2 hours and deliver the most eye-popping, beautifully colored, saturated, amazing photos ever. But if there's someone that likes their stuff desaturated and muted and more of like a gray, bluish scale, that ain't you, dog. Like, that's just not. And honestly, like, that's what happens with Bergara, is Bergara has a certain look, and we take our photos, we edit them, and Chris Holcomb, their brand manager, takes their Photoshop edit that they like and throws it on our photo, and they post it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a specific look, and they have so many people creating content for them that it's just easier for them to grab the photo that they like, throw their edit on it, and be done.
Yeah, and it standardizes things.
Right.
So if you're the photographer whose photos don't fit into that theme or that aesthetic, well, then it doesn't do that company any good because it's going to stand out on their feed. Right. It's not going to look like all the rest of the stuff, and they're not going to like want you back because, well, it doesn't fit in. They're going to find somebody who does fit in. And, you know, that's I'm not saying like that you got to go change your entire approach. Like, you know, I can't edit my photos a certain way because they don't look good to me, right? And Clay is the same way. He can't edit his photos a certain way because they don't look good to him. And that's just personal style stuff. And some brands are going to like the style of your photos, and some brands aren't going to like the style of your photos.
We had a client that would never post one of your photos.
Yeah.
If you went on a shoot and you took every kill photo of grip and grin, whatever, we're just not going to post one from this trip. But that's kind of where we are fortunate, where we have 4 different people with 4 different styles, where it's like, you know, hey, you're probably better off for this, or you're probably better off for this. But you shoot enough photos and your name gets out there, the companies that match your style are going to reach out to you. Like the companies that you're going to vibe with and your style are going to vibe with, they will find you. And also, you know what your photos look like compared to other photos. Like if you're a super saturated person and another company likes their stuff super muted, like you probably know that your style's not going to vibe with them. But there could be somebody else that, hey, our stuff really aligns. If y'all ever need anything, here's some examples. Hit me up, fam.
Yeah, and again,
Slide in the DMs.
you give that variety, you know, there's more chance that there's going to be a photo that works.
Right.
For somebody.
Right.
You know, so just is what it is. Everybody's got their own kind of look and feel. Every photographer does. Every brand does.
You give Ryer, Joe, Caleb, and I the same exact photo, I guarantee you get 4 different edits.
Well, I can tell.
I know for a fact. You get you go through our Smug Mug and you click on a picture, I can tell you who took it.
Yeah, I can tell.
And it's not because I know who was on the trip. Like I can just look and tell who took and we work around each other every day, and we all still have 4 different 4 different styles.
Yeah, I could tell. Like, Clay sent me stuff before and been like, hey, it's your photo. Because he knows, like, okay, this is one of our clients.
Right.
And he knows that one of us took the picture, but he sees the picture and he's like, oh, that's Ryer's style.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Clay might not have seen that picture that I took on our Smug Mug, but he knows, like, that's how his photos look.
Right.
And he'll be like, hey, did you take this? I'll be like, oh, yeah, I did.
Or like
look at that.
if we see, like, Chuck posts a photo, I'm like, ooh, that photo doesn't look very good. I know it's Caleb's.
Rough. I'm going to make you do – the next podcast is going to be you and Caleb because you got to give him a chance to defend himself. That's twice today.
No.
That's twice
was
today.
the other one?
Sam.
Oh, but only – well, I got it. You're coming next. And Joe.
Yeah, I guess Joe will be here
Yeah.
soon. We'll do some podcasts with him.
Yeah.
No, you know what? Caleb and Sam will do a podcast next.
The shortest podcast ever.
I don't know. Maybe Sam likes the jab, dude.
No chance.
Maybe he's a jawer, dude. What is it? Yap. That's the new term that everybody's using.
Well, then
Yapping.
Then let's
Maybe Sam yaps, dude.
Then let's-
Like me, I'm a yapper, dude.
Then let's yap about kill photos, so we don't get yelled at for having another hour and a half long podcast.
It's not yet. It's an hour and 13.
But by the time we yap about this unit, then
Yap away, dude.
do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
You can go first, honestly. Like, this is.
Because you have no notes and
No.
you need something. You need something to feed off
Hey,
of.
I do have notes. Look, 196. Hold on, this is like a weather broadcast. I gotta dial it in. 196. Bergara. What is the other one? Sports. This is my notes. Hold on. Clay's got his notes. Oh, he's marking them off. Look at that.
I've taken more notes for this podcast than I ever did in college.
Yeah, I believe that.
That's why I took college algebra 4 times.
It's because he didn't take notes, not because he sucks at math.
So kill photos.
This is a hot take, honestly. Bro, if there's 2 of us on a trip, I've gotten to the point where I would rather somebody else take the trophy photos.
I know.
Yeah, Clay knows.
I know.
I just don't like.
Because
to me,
it's hard to get creative with kill photos because most people don't want creative kill photos. They want to be able to open their phone, scroll through, hey man, look at this big old deer I shot.
Yeah.
And the only thing they do right is when we take a horizontal photo, they turn their phone to the side. Other than that, they do nothing else right.
Yeah, it just.
And we're gonna get into that. What the problem with kill photos?
I mean, it's hard for me to be creative in them sometimes, and like I don't know, there's no political reason that I don't want to take trophy photos. Like some people have a political reason, like they don't. There is discourse currently about whether or not trophy photos are something we should be taking and posting on social media. I'm not going to get into any politics on that front, but like,
I'll tell you this: I kill something, you're gonna see a grip and grin. It's the way it is. You don't want to see a grip and grin. If I kill something, don't come to my page because you're gonna see a grip and grin. You're gonna see me sitting behind that. I mean, I'm not gonna be like squatting over its back in the bed of the truck, holding it up, and like my face is between the antlers. Like I'm gonna be sitting off to the side very nicely, or the turkey's gonna be propped up on a log or something like that. But if I shoot it, you're gonna see it, guaranteed. I don't get to shoot stuff often enough that I'm not gonna post it.
Yeah,
I may even boost it with the company card, like throw a couple ads on there. $10 a month. Like, let's get some views, fam.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would too. So like, but again, I don't have any super strong. I see both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that the reason that I don't like to take trophy photos has nothing to do with like any political debate behind taking trophy photos. It's simply because I do not find them to be creatively fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I have a very hard time doing things I don't find creatively fulfilling.
Yeah.
And you can ask anybody. I have a very if I'm not excited creatively by what I'm doing, I'm like
Ryer's tuned out.
I'm like, nah.
Next.
I'm gonna go do something else.
So normally with kill photos, I'm gonna get at Caleb again. When you talk to Caleb about kill photos, he usually says, "Man, wide angle, get low, makes him look big."
It does,
but that's his.
That's his. I've made an elk look like a freaking dinosaur before.
Yeah, but that's
and
all.
I like to do them just for fun. Like I always want to do one.
Like how big can I make it look?
I just want to do one because it looks so cartoonishly big.
Right.
That I think that it's funny.
Right. But
like some people don't do it because it's funny. Like that's the one that's getting posted.
Right.
And I know. Clay knows. We know when you do it.
Oh yeah,
Like you ain't getting one passed on us.
No,
but I can look at a photo and be like, oh yeah, that's a 16 millimeter.
Yeah,
2 inches from that antler.
Yeah, like Caleb saying, hey man, wide angle and get close. That's because of his age. The older generation back in the day on film and TV and magazines, that's what you did. You 16
film. Caleb was sketching. Caleb had to draw the deer on the side of the cave.
He's pictographing.
I hope he hears me and comes running up here to defend himself.
That's honestly the way that it was lay down on your stomach, get as close as you can, fill the frame, wide angle, and go. And it was 16 to 35 or take a beautiful bokeh blown out photo with a 70 to 200. And if I had my choice, I would not take another kill photo with a 16 to 35 ever again. I like the 70 to 200 or like the ones we took in Texas with the 100 to 400 I thought were popping. But I could take every kill photo that I wanted that I would post that I think would look good with a 24 to 105. Somewhere between 24 and 50 is naturally like as close to what the eye is like what you can see, and it is a very natural, I don't want to say flat, but like everything just looks proportional.
Yeah.
And then 70 to 200, I just think it looks pretty because it really isolates the person and the animal.
Yeah, I like that.
And it just looks pretty. And honestly, the crappier your lighting situation, I have found very recently, the more you get away with a 70 to 200.
Yeah.
Because you just you're getting rid of things. Like, like if you have a bunch of highlights in the background, like obviously if it's blown out and you're shooting into the sun, it's not going to work. But like if you're in a wooded area and you're shooting like a 70 to 200 2.8 or like Joe's 85 1.8, you blow out that background, softens a lot of things up.
Yeah. It's just in general, wide shots are hard. Like just
everything has to be
generally speaking, wide shots are hard because you you can't like hide anything.
Right.
You're not hiding imperfections in out of focus areas. Your lighting has to, like, a large swath of land or area has to be in good light. So like wide shots are hard just generally, but definitely with like an animal.
Yeah.
Like if you got that splotchy light in a wide shot, it's rough. And then you don't have any depth of field to fall back on or anything like that.
Right. So like, if I was going to go shoot kill photos right now, leave this table, go shoot kill photos, I would take a 24 to 105 and a 70 to 200, and I would shoot level with the animal. Like, I don't want to stand up and take the photos because then you get no separation with your background. I will lay down, but that's to get like eye level. I'm never going to like take a 16 millimeter and lay right in front of the animal and like shoot up like this.
Yeah.
I'm taking usually the 70 to 200 or like I love taking them with the 1 to 400. Those were sick. But
I think some of my favorite ones were probably my favorite ones that I've done were the ones I did with we had the 2 to 600 at that time. But I did the 2 to 600 on Lee's mule deer in Alberta.
Oh, yeah.
Lee Lakoski's.
No, that was the 150 to 600. That was that Tamron.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they had this, like, cool mountain range in the background, and I was able to get some, like, crazy compression. Matthews used one of those for something. I forget what it was. Well, because that was – what bow was that?
That was right around – that was the launch of the V3X, because that would have been the first year that we went. So V3X.
Yeah. So like when we took those photos, that bow was not released yet.
Correct.
Because I remember he wanted to do one where it was like blurred out.
Right.
The bow was
right.
as like a coming soon kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, those are probably my favorite ones that I've.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a few that I like a lot,
right.
but I would say those.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it's that one, that two 150 to 600. Like you're not gonna get to break that on every one. Like that one worked because it was in Alberta and there was nothing.
Well, and you already had it. Like you're not just carrying that lens just to take photos with, unless you're only doing photos. If you're trying to film and do photos, you're not carrying a 150 600 or a 1 to 4, maybe a 1 to 400 because it's smaller.
Yeah, but like it's flat and there was nothing in the background, so like you could use it and get something cool.
Right. But like I'm trying to keep my lens eye level with like the nose of like the deer or whatever, or like body line of the turkey, whatever. And I'm using those natural angles. Like if I was going to sit down and like look at a deer, I'm going to get at its level and like look at it, or a turkey, whatever. If there's a person in the picture, like turkeys, not so much because you can kind of stand next to a turkey, but sometimes a lot of deer, always elk, moose. I've never taken a photo of a moose, but I'd have to assume because they're giant. Caribou, bears. Like most of the time the subject has to sit behind the animal.
Yeah.
So I'm running like, obviously the wider you are, the lower f-stop you can have, because like even at 16 millimeter 2.8, almost everything's in focus unless it's legit like super close, like this close to the lens. But if you're taking a picture of something far away, it's always in focus. So like if I'm on the 24 to 105, I'm like f4 to f6.3 because you want the person and the animal in focus. You do like 70 to 200 2.8 at like 200 millimeters.
Something's out.
You can have either and you have like eye autofocus on.
Like if you're doing an elk, you'll get 2 tines.
Yeah.
You'll get whatever 2 tines are in line with each other, and then everything in front and everything behind, out.
Yeah. So like honestly, that's kind of why I like the 100 to 400, because the lowest it goes is 6.3, or maybe it's like a 5.6 to 6.3.
But even then, you probably still got to use like a
f8,
8,
yeah,
10.
Yeah, right. But even at 100 millimeters,
or 11 or whatever.
Yeah, if I back it out to 100 millimeters, it's at 5.6 or 6.3. Like everything that's 40 yards behind the animal and past is completely blown out. But I have like a 15 or 20 foot window that's in focus that I don't have to like worry about. I mean, yeah, that's really all I got. I just really wanted to rant about not like, hey man, let me zoom out for you, brother. Get that thing looking big. Hold on, let me get a little closer. I hate that. Or like, hey, thanks for taking those photos. Let me hop in with my cell phone real quick and take a couple photos. First thing, horizontal, 0.5, extended arm. It's the first thing that happens every time, and I just go.
I do hate it when like I'm there and we're taking pictures and like I get my pictures and they're like, okay, let me take some with the iPhone. Because I need
some. They always say, "Let me take some. I'm just going to show these to my buddies."
Yeah, and then it gets like that's the one that goes up on Instagram or whatever, and you're like,
because you're
like, especially for me, like I really like if that's what you want, let's just do it with the iPhone, and I don't have to do it,
right?
Because to me, I'm doing this because you want these. Like as a creative,
because you're paying for these.
Yeah, like as a creative, I'm not really that stoked on taking this image right now. Just me personally. So like I'm doing it because you want it.
Right.
So like let's not take them. If you're gonna make me do them, if we're gonna do them, let's not take them on the iPhone. Or the Android, whatever you've got. Mostly iPhone, but. Like,
unless you shoot Nikon, then you definitely have an Android.
Yeah, it's true.
But
like let's not take it. I'm taking them on my big camera, and if you give me like 2 hours when we get back to camp, like I'll have some edited up for you.
I can have all of them edited, or if there's one specific one you want, I can edit that one in 10 minutes.
Yeah, like I'll have it.
We don't even have
you.
service where we are now, so it's not like you're sending them right now. You got to wait till we get back to the house on Wi-Fi, anyways.
Yeah, so like, I know it's not really that big of a deal, but
no,
sometimes
it's a big deal.
I'm like,
you're paying hundreds of dollars for. Now you're gonna get me hot. You're paying hundreds of dollars for someone to be there and do the creative things that you can't do with a camera, and then you're gonna be like, oh, let me send this to my buddy real quick, brother. Snap.
That's always the one. That's always the one that gets shown. It's never the one. It's never like I could do the same picture with my camera, and that's not like if you were to be like iPhone picture versus what that picture is, and it's like basically the same except for that one was taken on iPhone and I took this one on my camera, and they had to choose which one they're going to show to people. It's always that one.
Well,
and it irks me as like the creative who took the picture. In general, like, does this bear? Should I be annoyed by this? No, it does not matter at all, actually, in real life. Like, it does not matter in real life. But, like, as a creative, you're like, damn, why did I even take that picture? You know what I mean?
Another thing that gets me hot is, like, man, I'd really, like, I'll do this is my first 200, like, photos are going to be awesome, first 200-inch buck or whatever, yada, yada, yada. And then it's like, oh, man, we really need to get a 7th kill for this show. So let's go take photos right now. It's 1 p.m. And we're like, okay, so let's go take photos of your biggest deer ever while we have 3 more days to hunt at 1 o'clock in Texas, where there's not a tree any taller than this, or Oklahoma, where there's not a tree any taller than this, and just make the photos look like crap.
Yeah, that light's tough.
And then
like, you got the hat, and so
then
you always got.
You're like, man, can I at least ride around and try to find a place? Oh, we took photos over here this one time, in the middle of the day and looked great. And he shows me an iPhone photo, and the iPhone does all of its whatever exposure stuff in camera, and everything is perfectly exposed on the iPhone. It's like, man, the iPhone photos look great. And then you take a photo, and it's a little overexposed in the sky and a little underexposed in the subject, like the deer. And they're like, oh, man, it's just the deer is so dark. Well, it's like, well, I am going to like go back and edit these.
Yeah.
And like do the thing. But in order for me, like, I have to do that in camera so that when I get back to editing, I have the room to do it. I'm sorry that like my camera doesn't edit the photo in camera like the iPhone does. But also, like, your iPhone photo that's perfectly exposed is not going in a magazine because it's like 1 megabyte.
That's not true. That's not true. It'll go in a magazine.
Well, it's not going to look good in a magazine. It's not going on a trade show banner. That's for sure. It's not going to look good on. I mean, we've seen them on trade show banners.
That's what I'm saying.
You walk by the trade show and you think someone's throwing bricks at you because the pixelation's so bad on the side of the trade show. It's like all the pixels are like this big and dude's eye is like this big around with like 7 squares in the middle. But that is what makes me mad. It's like, and it happens a lot more with photos than it does video. But it's like if you're paying for a creative to be there and do their job that you're paying for, let us do our job the way we need to do it. And obviously I understand, like, hey, we only have 3 days to do this thing. Like, we have to make the most of our time. I get that, but there are a lot of times that we fight and fight and fight and fight for that, and they're just like, nope, we need 87 more kills. Have to go do it right now. It's like, okay, what I'll do my best. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people complain about having the bounce in their face. Oh, they're so blinding. Give me good light. I ain't got to bounce you, bro. The only reason you're getting bounced is because the nucleus of the sun is 7 feet above me, and it's bouncing off of this white thing because light's dookie. But get my paycheck. I'll do what you want. And that's about the point that I get to, is like I fight for like 10 minutes about it, and then I get to the point that it's like they're paying for it. They want to complain at the end of the day, and then I can just say we needed to do it in low light or in good light. You didn't want me to. I got my paycheck. There's only so much you can fight.
Yeah, I would say that generally, I just try to like find like some way to be creative in those scenarios. Like, okay, what's something different I can do? You know, because it's like I know I'm gonna need this photo and this photo and this photo and this photo. Those are the same trophy photos that everybody wants all the time. And like, you know, to be fair, I can't really hate on that, because if I killed something, I would want one of those photos, right? Because that's the one that shows it off. But also, from a creative perspective, I always try to think, okay, I've got those now. Like, what can I do to get some different ones?
I love over the shoulders.
Over the shoulder, I like a big wide.
Yeah.
I've got a few big wides that I've done that I thought were cool. There was one that I did of Tiffany's Bowl in Utah that I liked. Only thing I didn't like was the lighting was harsh.
Yeah, and all the vegetation around it was like 84 feet tall.
Yeah, but it kind of worked out. I liked that one. There's been some like wides that I like.
I like shooting through antlers.
Yes.
Like if there's a gun and you can like have the person hold the antler and then hold the gun in this hand, and you can shoot through the antlers to like the fluted barrel or the stock or the action or the muzzle brake, whatever.
Yeah.
That always looks good. You love hands and eyes.
Mm-hmm. I love texture. Like if you can get some cool texture of like antlers or fur or like the dirt or something like that, like I think those are really cool. I do those a lot with like the Bergara guns. It's like you can lay it against the animal, and you've got the texture of their fur, and then the texture of like the stock or the barrel or something like that.
I like antler features. So like if a deer has a split or it's palmated or drop tine or something, I usually do it with the 24 to 105 because it's got good close focus, but I'll put it on 105, and it's only an f4, but its close focus is so good that it still blows out everything around it. And like I'll just fill the frame with like that antler feature.
Yeah.
And that looks cool. It's like another creative thing. They're like, hey, I killed something with this thing, but I didn't have to like do a grip and grin.
Yeah. I think the other thing is like
people love
when you do get good light, like when everything works out and you just get like you killed really early or killed like at the very end of the day, and like the time you get to take pictures is in that golden hour, and you can really play with that light. Those are really cool.
the sun flares.
There's been a couple times where I've actually gotten to like bring lights. Usually that's like for whitetails.
Yeah.
That you're not doing that for almost anything else.
Right.
Unless you're like that would be its own project. Like if you wanted to do that for like an elk, Like you'd have to be carrying lights around in your pack and batteries,
Right.
which would be a pain. But like it would be some cool photos. But you can like light it. I like the one you did a long exposure one with the deer that I killed with you.
Mm-hmm.
There in Georgia. I like that one. That one was cool. And I have not seen many like that. I think I've seen maybe a couple ever.
I've tried some with flash, like some photos of flash, and I don't know enough about flash that they.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like, honestly, over flash, I like just putting the big LED panel on the hot shoe of my camera and just having constant light. I know exactly what it's going to look like before I take the photo, and that's it.
When I've done that, I usually don't have it on my camera. Usually I've been lucky and there's been other people there.
They can hold it.
And I'll have them go off to the side. So then at least it's not just like a straight.
Yeah.
Because then it kind of flattens everything.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can have them go off to the side with that LED panel, at least it'll give it like dimension because you'll have some shadows. Now you got to like find the place where that works off to the side of the camera, but like it will give it some more dimension.
It's a good way to isolate too because everything else around it's dark as crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think getting kill photos, getting back to our tips, if you can get them out of the woods, I take that back. If you can get them in an area where there's not a lot of underbrush or like
the underbrush is hard.
Because like you get a very beautiful like creek bottom or something where it's a bunch of big timber, but there's not a lot on the forest floor. It looks good, but I mean you get any type of like taller vegetation on the forest floor or on the road or whatever, and you end up just like picking all of it out anyways.
Deer, I would say that elk are generally the hardest. One, because they're so big, and two, you're not moving an elk. I mean, you could if you've got a tractor. Like if you can get a tractor into it, then maybe you could move the elk. Like after you've got it and everything. But like by that point, you're just going to be fighting it. Like and most of the time, like you're just not moving an elk.
Right.
So, however, especially like a lot of times they go run off the side of a hill, and then they die and they're caught up in deadfall or something like that.
Hope you got your 1635, bro.
Those are rough because it's like you're not moving it. It just is like how it fell is about the way it's going to be, unless you got like 4 dudes to try to prop it a little bit. But even then, like you're maybe going to get it to turn one way or the other and orient the antlers.
Yeah.
Other than that, you got nothing. And then you run into it's so big, it's in a weird position, and generally it's in thick timber.
Dark.
Yeah.
Thick timber.
Your exposure is going to be weird. Like, it's tough.
The hardest.
So when you see like a really good elk photo,
appreciate it
because like there was some luck that went into that one usually. Because with deer, like you can move the deer, especially with turkeys. Like that's why you see really like turkeys. You can get some sick photos with turkeys. It's because you just pick them up and walk to wherever you like. If it's 2 miles away, you take that turkey 2 miles.
You take a bad turkey photo, shame on you.
Yeah, like you could get that turkey somewhere that's cool, where the light is good, where you got foreground, background. There's enough separation. They're small enough that like it opens up more avenues for you to work with. They're like,
easier to like for the subject to hold because they're lighter.
Yeah, like that's why you see awesome turkey photos all the time because you can move them to wherever it is.
The hardest deer photos I've ever taken are ones like where like Lee killed one of his 200s in an analogic food plot, and I was like, I kind of bit myself because I suggested, I was like, you did actually kill it in the analogics turnip field. Like, would you want to take a photo in the turnip field? He's like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we move it over there and do the turnips were like this tall.
Oh, yeah.
And it was and we ended up not taking the photo in that specific field because like the turnips were too tall.
Yeah.
Like, because you either had to not see the bottom half of the deer, or you had to tear up all the turnips around it to where it looked like the deer was sitting in an island of like nothing.
Right.
So it just it made it look like crap. So we ended up taking it to a smaller, I don't want to say less productive because it was still like turnips like this tall. But
It wasn't as tall.
Right. The stuff on the ground is usually your biggest enemy.
Yeah.
But
I think that's all I got to say on that.
that's all I got.
I think generally, if I was to give one piece of advice for taking better photos, is think about the story that your photo is telling. And
Take a lot of photos.
yeah, but like a photo is not just a photo. Like, I mean, technically it is, but
24 of them's a video.
true. Well, if you put them back to back and play them,
Yeah.
each for one frame. Like each photo tells a story, and you are in charge of that story. And there's, just like a video, so many choices you can make affect the story of that photo. And a good photo tells a compelling story, and you don't need any other context. All you do is you look at that photo, and it tells a story. It gives you a feeling. And that's how you know you've got a good photo. And there's a lot that goes into that: lighting, composition, all the technical specs, your lens choice, your depth of field, all that stuff goes into it. But at the end of the day, like, you got to think in your head, what story am I trying to tell? And use your camera to try to tell that story. What feeling am I trying to get across with this image? And use your camera to try to get that feeling across. And if you focus on trying to do that, you'll get some awesome images.
Yeah.
If you just throw your camera up just to take a picture of something because it's there, you're not going to get top-level photos.
Yeah.
Top-level photos hit you in the face with a story or a feeling.
And I don't want to prolong this any longer than we have to, but if you're someone that's like new to photography and you haven't like quite created your own style or like found your eye for photography, do what I'm doing right now. We have a project that we're doing, and scroll through Instagram, find some stuff that you like, and save it or screenshot it, and go out and try to either replicate it or put your own little twist on it or make it better. Like, I'm scrolling through some pages right now for a type of product that I've never really done any content for, and Joe and I are doing it next week, and we're going through Instagram, saving reels and photos that we like, and we're going to put our own little twist on it and making them fit the brand image that this brand wants. So I've probably got 12 or 13 ideas that, hey, I want to do this concept but twist it in this way.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do it too.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for this podcast. If you are just listening, remember there is a video version that is on our YouTube. Just search Redneck Tech. I guess it's TV now, isn't it?
I have no idea.
I think it is. I think we changed. Yeah, I got to remember that. Our Instagram is at Redneck Tech TV. You can follow us there. That is the best place to reach out to us if you've got questions, comments, or concerns. And again, I mentioned it last podcast, but we do have a class coming up June 5th to the 9th. It's always a really good time. You're going to leave with more information than you will be able to know what to do with. And also, our good buddy Jason Ellsworth is going to be there cooking up a storm. It's probably one of the best food weeks of the year. So, I mean, it's a double, triple whammy there. Good information, good times. I mean, hanging out with people who all share the same passion as you do for photography, videography, video editing, and specifically in the outdoor space is always a fun time. I forgot to switch the camera to myself. Look at me go. But, yeah, we'd love to have you. If it sounds like something that you are interested in, shoot us a DM, email us, rednecktechpodcast@gmail.com, and we will get you more information. But with that, we are going to sign out.
And go to lunch.
And go to lunch. It's now 2:10. We've been podcasting for an hour and 45 minutes. And I think the next podcast will be Caleb. I think so, huh?
Should be.
Make him come up here and do one.
Make him do something.
Yeah. All right. See y'all.